Part 2 of the castle vision, that's what I call it. The mighty warrior quickly gazed around the room, eyes searching for any unearthly enemies. To his surprise, his gazing eyes rested on a woman sitting on a bed with her back against the headboard. She was not startled or surprised to see that she had visitors. Their eyes locked. He knew this woman. She was once very well respected, powerful, and loving woman, but now her burning, bloodshot eyes were full of hate and disgust for anything good. She was obviously under the control of a very powerful evil entity. How could this be? Her heart was full of love for all things, and now this. The only thing he could do was smile at her with absolute love. One of his men ran to the right side of the bed and sat in a chair and just looked at her in disbelief. The warrior turned to the right and walked through the room towards a door that was in the floor. Reaching down, he grabbed the handle and swung it open. He did all of this without even taking his eyes off of her. He just looked at her the whole time. He like knew where the door was. He knew where to walk. He then peered down the hole in the floor and began to descend the rocky steps. After only going down a few steps, he had a very strong feeling to go back up into the room. He sprang back up the steps and into the room. The woman had grabbed the man sitting next to her by the arm, and whatever had control over her was suddenly taking control over him. The warrior very calmly walked over to them, still smiling, and looked at her, reaching out with his powerful hands and ever so gently removed her grip from the man. Suddenly, the look on her face and eyes began to change. Her life was beginning to come back into her. Now it was time to go down into the blackness of that stairway in the floor. Sword in hand, the warrior began descending this cave-like stairway. On his way down, he started to notice it getting hotter and hotter. A very powerful wind began to blow. This is very hard to describe, so I'm just going to do it the best that I can. It was now blowing. The wind was blowing so hard that he could not even hear his own thoughts. His thick, long, blood-stained hair had the sound of many whips because the air was blowing so hard his hair was just snapping as it was going into the wind of this unnatural vortex of air streamed past him. He pressed himself downward, using the sides of the passageway to climb down. Up ahead, he saw the opening of the passageway, and as quickly as the wind started, it ended. The wind stopped blowing. He could now hear, and what he heard, he could not understand. With his sword leading the way, he made his way out of the mouth of the passageway and found himself in a very large underground chamber. It was huge chamber. His eyes had never before seen anything like this. On one side of the room, he saw 2 steps running the entire length of the room, and on the upper area, all kinds of different things that were unknown to him. He also saw a hideous, awful-looking, disfigured man. All of this man's attention was looking back to the other side of the room. So it was like the warrior's coming out of this passageway, and there's rock on this side, so he can only see this man and all of this stuff. And there's 2 steps running down the room. So coming around the corner, the room is split in half. This side, on the left side, is this dark water, and on like another dimension or something. And on this side was the earthly realm. And this dark water went straight flat and then jetted straight up into the air. And there was this huge spinning vortex of dark water. So that's what is being seen. And what this disfigured man was looking at and actually conjuring was unbelievable. The ground had the appearance of water, a dark water, and out towards the far side of the room, this dark water jutted straight up into the air. It was twisting around like a vertical hurricane, and at its center, it looked as if this twisted evil was giving birth to a living horror. All of this happened within seconds. Suddenly, both of these abominations of evil turned their attention to this one single man holding a sword. Alone. He's alone, facing this absolute nightmare. Like, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to continue. All at once, it seemed that time began to stop, and the warrior stared in amazement. It seemed he could see in three different realities. It seemed through his left eye he could see all the darkness and all the horrors of hell. Through his right eye he could see this bright light and a peace and happiness, heaven-like. At the same time, he could see through his own fleshly eyes. So he could see in three different realities. He can see through his flesh eyes, his left eye is seeing the horrors of hell, and his right eye is seeing heaven. Then he notices this with his hearing. His left ear, he could hear the awful sounds, and his right ear, he could hear the wonderful sounds, and his fleshly ears could hear the sounds that were going around right in front of him. And then his eyes and ears worked as one. He began to see and hear lost souls appearing out of the darkness, as they could see him too. They were crying out to him in misery and pain. Then he would be pulled the other way, and seeing the bright souls singing and praising. This continued back and forth, mortal eyes and ears taking in the ungodly rage and hatred of the two entities that he has, they have towards him for intruding on their twisted, evil ways. In the darkness, the enslaved souls pouring out into full view, with their tormentors following behind, digging in their claw-like fingers. The darkness pulling back further and further to uncover thousands and thousands of lost souls. So on this side, the darkness is like, he at first he can only see these things close to him, and then it's just opening up, and there's just thousands and thousands of thousands, and all with these dark entities just that have their grip on them. And to the right side, thousands and thousands of illuminated souls. His ears were consumed with countless voices just pounding on into his ears. All of this sound just drowning out everything. His ears were consumed with countless voices from both sides, the shrieking moans of the lost, crying out with terror, "Help us, free us, don't lose your way and become like us." And the bright side also calling to him, giving him beautiful words and singing, almost the complete opposite of the darkness. The evil ones tempting him to no end, speaking lies to him, the light souls filling him with wisdom. One man in the middle of all this confusion. It was maddening. He felt as if he was being ripped apart. The darkened souls, gripped with madness, ripping through one side of him, all this darkness, and the bright souls calling him and pulling him on this side, to their brightness, to their brightness on this side. So there's all this coming in this way and all this coming in this way. All the voices drowning him. Suddenly, he found himself on his hands and knees. The dark shadows calling him, ripping through his entire being. Eyes closed or open, he could still see all this madness. The struggle, light, dark, it all seemed the same. Like in the grips of an enormous serpent, squeezing the life out of him. My wife, my family. Am I going to see them again? Is this it? My mission, my land, my God. That's what he's thinking. That's what's going through his mind. He's like, what am I going to do? I'm stuck. I'm trapped. All of this is coming down on me. What am I? What do I do? What do I do? Is this life? Is this life pounding on you? The light and the darkness. There's that struggle. The light and the darkness pounding on you, pulling you down. You don't know what to do. How do we get out of this? What do we do?